Greetings, my internet friends. Welcome to Walking and Talking, the show in which I walk and talk. As I begin here, I had noticed a brief gap after saying the introductory phrase that I always say, and in that gap, searching for what to say. And the thing that I did say, the thing that came out, I'm remembering back into that decision-making process and feel as if it almost came out without my total awareness, or as if it came out not as a result of any lengthy, deliberated process of choosing. Obviously, it was a pretty short gap, but what's become interesting already is the length to which I find myself already expounding upon that very brief process of looking for the decision, looking for the answer of what to say. And it's as if what I'm saying right now is just a continuation of that not knowing what to say. And you may observe that in a certain sense nothing has been really said so far, only just a description of a certain process of looking for what to say. But at this point, it's maybe becoming apparent that there's something additional, something extra or excessive even, beyond merely a description. Hey, look at this huge praying mantis. My apologies, this is a diversion. I'm not going to dwell too much on the praying mantis. Anyhow, there's something beyond just a description of what's going on, because it seems like the meaning of what I am saying now is like an optional type of construction, and it's true that all of this that I am saying right now is in fact referring to the same thing, the same kind of unknowing, or the same kind of nothing little moment at the beginning of the video. Or in a way, it's all referring to itself in a sense. But even if it is all referring to that moment of uncertainty, that moment of trying to decide what to say, it's obvious that it's quite a bit more detailed and lengthy an examination of that than would be brought forth under any normal circumstances. You know what I mean? but that it all makes sense also. Everything that I'm saying here. And it seems interesting to me that one can just choose to take anything and just extrapolate from it, extrapolate all this you can just kind of extend its meaning or extrapolate what it is into this whole structure of meaning. And when I say this seems like it's extrapolating nothing into this whole structure of meaning, I mean basically that at the same time that everything that I'm saying has this single referent that is practically nothing, that is it's effectively just self-referential, and in such not ultimately saying anything. Oh hey, here's a couple of frogs. It's not saying anything, but it's saying nothing in as many words as you want, you know, as you may choose. And in my case where my kind of predetermined MO here is to essentially fill up space with talking, then that's just a boon of material. You know, you don't really need subject matter. You don't need any subject matter to create content. Or it's like this content may not really have any content. And once again, when there was this just brief pause, in the pause, just for a moment, there was this problem presented to myself, this problem of what to say, and thinking of what is the right thing to say, and then that problem went away kind of simultaneously to me beginning to speak again, and beginning to speak again, not really about anything, other than what's going on. I mean, maybe this is a problem in a certain sense. I mean, it's not, there's no surety on my part whether this is something like a worthwhile activity. There's a lot of uncertainty in that regard, but there was enough to get me out here to do it. But yeah, now in these pauses, what has become apparent is a deeper problematicness of what's going on here. That is, there's an emotional problem being registered of, is this right or is it wrong? Is it good or is it bad? Is this a morally inferior or more, you know, if not morally wrong, just a not the most morally right use of my time and your time, you know? The question of to create this world of meaning that we are recognizing as unnecessary, arbitrary, you know? Is that irresponsible, considering that there already exists a world of meaning that appears broader and more consequential? Are we, is this a diversion? Are we, in a sense, creating for ourselves a virtual reality or an escapist realm where we are moving around in a world of meaning that we know has no serious consequences because it is so contained? It's all contained just in the structure of this video. As kind of an escape from having to deal with meanings that seem to have more serious consequences, that would seem to play some role in the suffering or well-being of other beings and so on, so forth. And so this question comes up for me with a real weight and emotionally charged uncertainty, like the uncertainty with a negatively valenced feeling, a worry. And I can frame what I'm expecting to happen in a certain way that might attempt to assuage some of this worry. That is a framing as in drawing from my memory of previous iterations of this activity I can reasonably predict that if I persist in this manner through the 4 hours, then I can expect a relatively good chance of achieving some kind of flow state in which temporality feels more dissolute and open, and I feel more emotionally and intellectually and spiritually unbounded and connected with quote-unquote reality. And I will have the feeling of having gained a perspective that is like relatively transcendent of moral dichotomies, and I will feel a certain kind of lightness along with all of that. So that's one way I can frame my present experience in relation to an anticipated future. But another alternate way that I could frame this situation is quite different, in that I could suppose that this anticipated flow state that I might experience later on in this video will alter and bias my view of reality, and I will have this experience of openness and connectedness, but which is in a certain sense removed and disconnected from the more shared world of meaning. The more it's in a sense isolated and protected from the more consensus reality, in which there are meanings and decisions and so forth that would have more material consequences for more people. And in that framing of things, this is a somewhat escapist activity. And then I can look upon this very process of outlining two alternate possible framings of this activity / experience as in some small way a form of virtue in itself, if you will, of illustrating a certain aspect of thinking, or a certain malleability of thinking and framing that in itself is at least consequential in terms of this experience. But and then by analogy, it could be said to be a way of thinking that has broader consequences outside of this type of bounded activity. Maybe in some sense suggesting a type of malleability, at least insofar as our subjective experience goes, at least in terms of our individual psychology goes. Not necessarily, but then also kind of by extension, at least making some kind of indeterminate type of implication for real world material consequences. Just simply by virtue of examining the question of does our subjective experience of something being positive or negative, that being influenced by our framing of it, have any influence on the real world consequences and outcomes with respect to other people, other beings. And if it does or if it doesn't, does that matter? I'm kind of judging what I'm saying as being somewhat convoluted in a way. A little bit absurd how ballooned up with language these ideas are, and it's like a very convoluted way to get to something, of making some kind of point, a very slow way of seeming to make some kind of point, and then continuing to move on questioning that very point, or at least making some kind of observation on the quality or the means of arriving at that point. And now I question whether all of this is in some sense undergirded by a unexamined assumption that this posture of self-questioning is in itself an inherent good. The posture of self-criticality as a posture of taking the moral high road of self-reflection and introspection and so on. But then by merely bringing that up, in a sense, I kind of continue down that. And I will say that there is still this just feeling of unease surrounding all of this feeling of this is all really stupid in a way. That this is all that it all has this enormous blind spot that that my speaking here is a manifestation of a certain position that is essentially missing something very important. I mean, merely by its own existence as a position, and by a position just, I mean that there's an orientation here, that there is a direction, even if it be as basic as this self-imposed directive to fill up 4 hours with speaking to a camera and making it public. Just that very premise being stupid, that this question of why to fill up so much time with this type of speaking that is so just like I said earlier, an extrapolation of nothing, just saying nothing in as many words as possible. And it just runs into anything that makes sense. It comes into conflict with anything that would make sense, just in terms of delivering for you some kind of value, something useful or insightful, or at least beautiful or poetic. And then again, as I articulate that basic circumstance, that is the my felt experience of coming into a powerful friction with everything that I would take to be moral or true or beautiful or useful or instrumental or impactful in any way. I think that there still lies a shred of a type of faith, if you will, that I can honestly say is very much formed by some sort of amalgamation of memory, or if there is an intuition informing my persistence to keep doing this, it's easily understandable that that intuition is formed on the basis of several prior experiences. So this being an intuition that says that there is in fact some other form of, if not exactly a value, then maybe some form of meta value or something like that, or other perspective to be gained from giving oneself the time to remain in friction with the sorts of things that one seems to believe. I don't know. But how would you know in which direction to maintain that friction, or to allow that friction, that dissonance, that cognitive and or emotional dissonance to persist? Obviously not by just engaging in activities which seem just basically immoral, or that are obviously causing harm. But perhaps maybe it's something along the lines of trusting that intuition enough to engage in activities in which the benefit, if you will, is not immediately apparent or takes time to reveal itself. Meanwhile, there's this discomfort. But then again, there's still this question that I have that is like, is what I'm doing causing some kind of harm? Maybe it's not major, maybe it's just a waste of your time and a waste of my time, just basically the question of, is there something better that you and I could be doing with our time? When speaking in terms of like an other-oriented practice, like just, behavior in the world that helps other people, that makes the world suck less. And of course, I can proceed forward on a number of intellectual framings of this experience that would satisfy those requirements. One of them obviously being that in a media landscape that is overwhelmingly dominating by agents engaged in essentially psychological warfare with the intention to entrap your attention and stimulate you and attract you in ways that are ultimately deleterious to your well-being, then something that is excessively long and inordinately difficult to maintain paying attention to over its duration is in some ways like a behavioral antidote, or at least maybe some kind of alternative with the potential to intercept your attention and put it towards a different task than what I would perceive the majority of other actors out there. That is, the intentions, unconscious or conscious or unconscious, and the motivations behind them. And so but then the question arises, is the would-be virtue of this activity dependent solely on Is it riding solely on its function as an alternative to much more harmful media that exists in the same platform? You know what I'm saying? Is the only good thing about this some kind of its potential intervention into our habits, our bad habits? And then but all the while, at the same time, I'm growing dissatisfied with this whole way of looking at the present, as in all of this moral reasoning. I have the sense that it's in some ways missing the point. Or that it is distracting from something that might be a little more subtle. A more subtle potential that this type of thing could have. Or perhaps has had in the past. But then, you know, no revelation of that sort is forthcoming, as far as I can tell. Like, it could be the possibility that this well, here's one thing I'll say, is that all of this moral reasoning is in some sense a type of shaping of what is fundamentally a dissatisfaction. That is, even putting forth this this position of this is either moral or immoral and could be more or less moral than other possible options, and remaining within the framework of better or worse, or the possibility of getting better or worse, or having a better or worse outcome for you and for me, and then potentially for other people, however directly or indirectly. Is admitting of a fundamentally a dissatisfaction, that the way things are right now are somehow not enough, or not good enough, or need improvement, which is I can't outright deny that. I certainly cannot deny this persistence of some form of dissatisfaction. You know what I mean? But if I am to be honest, I do feel as if I'm becoming cognizant of the linking of that dissatisfaction as a conceptual quality that seems to be undergirding everything that's been said so far, with that having a certain linkage with a physiological phenomenon that I am at least becoming a little bit more cognizant of right now, or in the past few seconds. But then again, I have to question then if that and just to spell that out a little more clearly, or in a little bit more concrete terms, that when I'm expressing this worry about whether this is a good thing, or if it's a bad thing, or if it's a insufficiently good activity / use of your and my time, I can now, in retrospect, remember this physical tension that I was holding in my body that's related to all that, and maybe it's not necessarily I can't, that doesn't necessarily imply causation, it doesn't necessarily mean that my physiological tension in the body was the causal factor of my the conceptual problematicness that was infiltrating everything, or maybe infiltrating is too strong of a word, but just the problematic quality of everything that I was saying, or the orientation of dissatisfaction and by extension possibility of betterment. The orientation of being squarely within the bounds of the possibility of betterment, occupying the foreground of one's experience. And it could be the causal directionality could easily be reversed, that thinking about those things would then contribute towards my physiological tension. Now, all of that being said, I also have to acknowledge the possibility that another contributing factor towards this physiological / conceptual physiologically, conceptually mind-body linkage of problematicness was contributed to by this external world characteristic of I was just walking uphill. And that's an exertion, a relative physiological exertion that that is let's say more physically difficult than some perfect equilibrium that we could associate with walking on level ground. And what has to be acknowledged is that at the point in which my thinking started to turn towards analyzing the very phenomenon of dissatisfaction, and starting to view that within a broader context as it being not fundamental to reality, but in some sense an option or a possibility out of multiple, or at least one possibility out of two possibilities, its opposite being something like contentment. That turn occurred at the same time as the terrain actually leveled out, and I reached essentially the top of the hill, the top of the mountain. Oh, by the way, I think I'm going in kind of the wrong direction here, but that's all right. And then when it leveled out, that's when you could say that the emotional valence of my thinking made a turn, at least somewhat, in the direction of leveling out, of not being quite so emotionally concerned. Now we have to remember some of the things that I said earlier. So, for instance, as I offered earlier, is this in fact just the beginning of the beginning stages of some type of flow state, or just a, you know, this purely subjective emotional benefit caused by being, you know, walking in nature for a certain amount of time, and having my physical environs impact my my physiological state in a way that confers an immediate sense of well-being, regardless of any change outside of my subjectivity. And I mean, put in those terms, the answer seems most likely yes. But then again, be that as it may, I also have to concede that from this, at least subjectively, you know, more or less neutral. I don't know if it's like, I wouldn't say that I'm feeling good exactly. I wouldn't say I'm exactly feeling good, you know, 'cause there's at least all these looming, big looming questions, big problems. What the fuck? There's these two moths right next to each other, right on the white mark of the tree that they're just almost perfectly camouflaged, but they look, it's really just a ridiculous image. I have to show you this. I mean, I can't help but I cannot help but marvel at, I mean, just to bastardize this whole experience, and I know this is a irretrievably terrible way to think about this in terms of the composition of this. Now I'm observing nature through my lens that has been dirtied by the knowledge of art, or the language of art, and that I'm, you know, observing these two moths as organic forms, and they're off-white, and they're against a white background that has horizontal lines, and I think I feel beauty, and I think beauty. And part of me sees this as a painting, and I'm like, and it's bastardized because I can see this as like, I want this, I want to capture this, I want to take this beauty with me in the form of a painting. Can I exploit this into, you know, an object of beauty? But maybe I can, and hence this is why I'm like holding the magnifying glass up to the camera lens and trying to get as many alternative framings of this image as I can, you know. But enough of that. What I was saying was, is what's going on right now simply the beginning stages of the positive subjective feelings that are contributed to by my giving attention to this activity, as well as being immersed in nature, as well as having gone up a steep hill and now being relieved of that difficulty. And so insofar as we are asking that question, I would say, yeah, that's exactly what's going on. But then at the same time, I also have to concede that, you know, from this subjectively isolated, perhaps, you know, in some ways protected or removed, privileged vantage point, or you know, just to call it all in all the negative interpretations, this aberrantly positively skewed vantage point. My framing of the external world also takes on different characteristics, and different aspects of my understanding of the world start to advance into the foreground, and other aspects of my understanding of the world recede some into the background. Now, this is not a dramatic change, mind you. It's not. I'm by no means feeling anything like blissed out or enveloped by a transcendent sense of belonging, and that and ultimate fundamental goodness of reality, and so on and so forth. And I know that is, you know, one possible outcome. That's a thing that has, you know, has happened in these before. But I would say that, you know, I'm in, from my perspective, there's some kind of I don't know if it's necessarily a balance, but there's some kind of dialogue taking place between, let's say, the problematicness of the world, the all of the problems, small and large, in the world, and the problem of suffering, and the possibility for changes we make in the present, decisions we make in the present to affect better or worse outcomes for the future, and for decisions we make in the present to affect other people in positive or negative ways. That perspective is perhaps also in dialogue with some other perspective on reality, where how to say it? I may have jumped the gun on this. Like it's that like I was beginning to say, like, some perspective in which it's ultimately all okay. Everything, is ultimately okay, or something like that. All of the suffering and problems notwithstanding. But now that I'm saying that, I to be honest, I don't quite feel like completely in touch with that reality, or with that aspect of reality. I still sense something in between that and me, some amount of skepticism, or like the problemness still looms as a salient and real part, merely the reality that I can't honestly say that it really feels like it doesn't exactly feel like any kind of relevant reality, that in some philosophical sense everything turns out okay in the end. And my inclusion of philosophical in that statement is evidence that does merely feel philosophical. It feels merely philosophical, or merely intellectual or conceptual, as in not having a strongly apparent connection with the present reality. And that feeling, once again, kind of extends to the more, I guess, concrete aspects of the present reality. That is what I'm doing right now and what I'm saying. Like the uncomfortable uncertainty feels present again. And then, I also have to ask, is there some unconscious factor there, like I'm going uphill? But then, there looms this whole possibility that all of this is, this entire line of thinking is just irredeemably ridiculous. I mean, it does seem like that. This does seem completely a ridiculous thing to do. Like, what the fuck? Like, you would be right to make the sort of, I mean, you would be perfectly valid in making the type of reductive comment about this, which is actually quite common, that it is merely just overthinking that is a kind of a self-continuing problem that would not be present if I were would just engage in the practical problems of daily life and of be involving myself just, you know, in interpersonal relationships and so on and so forth. Now there is perhaps some grain of truth in that type of reductive analysis of this, but then again, I also feel that what's going on here is not actually as solipsistic as it would appear on the surface, because in fact, you know, it's like this activity here does not even exist without your participation of it. Essentially, if you know, I mean, let's just look at the basic fact that you are listening to this. You are listening to this, and you are, in that sense, allowing it into your reality. And in some sense, it's like this reality of yours is the only one you have, and so is effectively all of reality. I mean, I don't mean that in the solipsistic sense as and in that you know, everyone else's reality is completely subservient in some way, or canceled out, but simply that effectively the reality that you experience is the only one that you have, and you are deciding, however actively or passively, to allow this to be a component of it, to kind of bring this to life in a certain sense. You know what I mean? Just in the sense of that like what nobody knows about effectively doesn't exist, you know? What is not sensed, you know? But that, I mean, that's getting a little bit more philosophical than is really necessary. Just that, like, that this is actually communication between more than one individual. There's no denying that. And I mean, I would say that this is kind of inextricably connected with social relation, with sociality, with intersubjectivity, and and how we kind of collectively make meaning in the world. And in fact, from my point of view, in a sense, I feel more actively engaged and connected with the world and with what I perceive as the more important problems and questions of the world. I honestly feel more connected when I'm doing this, when I'm making these videos, than when I'm engaged with the problems that feel just more personal to me, you know. And then, but at the same time, it's not to really denigrate the kind of personal minutiae of life. And don't get me wrong, I do in fact value personal IRL relationships, and I have very many that I would perceive as very healthy and long-lasting, and are extremely valued to me. Hat tip to my, you know, little shout out to my homies. Not to denigrate that in any way, but I can kind of I can picture the contrast, you know, between, let's say, this mode of relating to the world in these long walks and talks, and let's just say, let's for instance say, like, sitting and browsing the internet and like relating to the world through you know, clicking through the internet and having my attentional faculties drawn in rapidly scattering directions by each piece of information or stimuli, one moment to the next, or you know, like what would seem like more self-centered concerns of, you know, like worrying about whatever it be, my image or my appearance or my financial status or my social status, and so on and so forth. But you know, so there's at least that, like, surface difference between things, where it's like, I would say that, I mean, and this is a weird thing. This is a very weird thing when I'm talking like I am now, in a way that is in fact kind of personal. Like, in a way, I am talking about myself here, and I am talking about activities which form meaning for myself. Paradoxically, it starts to feel in some way more self-centered, and moving in the direction more towards narcissism, because I am essentially talking about myself, but it is simply a indirect means of addressing questions that I would imagine could be broadly applicable, perhaps to yourself, and then again, this is a common way that we communicate with each other is by reflecting our respective personal experiences. That is, one person telling their story, their narrative, their own narrative, and the person listening, however successfully or not, being able to see something of their selves reflected in that, or to reflect the commonalities or differences in their own personal narrative. However, this I think this is a tangent from somewhere that I was going. Just that, well, this is not necessarily the direction that I was going, but I just want to speak about another reflection on what is going on here that has occurred to me, and it's what feels like a wandering, a meandering quality, about the types of things that I am saying. And it's like for periods of time, one sort of trail of thought can have some level of interest to it, it seems. Like, I mean, I don't know if you experienced this, but for instance, like there was this passage where I'm like talking about how this very activity is in some way feels to me more engaged with life's deeper questions than when I perceive myself being caught up in the minutiae and practicalities of daily life, which may or may not really be true. But anyhow, something interesting is that even that whole train of thought, in some senses, is also really not saying anything, and is also just as unreflective as it might be reflective. Because in some sense, while it's talking about forming meaning, it's talking about addressing deep questions, in that sense that it is about, it's still kind of creating an other, you know, it's still creating this other of meaning, you know, it's still pointing towards something that it itself is not. And I'm just talking about, well, interestingly, about this itself, and this could be said of absolutely everything that's been said so far, and this, in a way, comes at me like a lightning bolt, like a bam, that all of this has in fact been the action of searching, and in that action of searching, it is actively missing that which is being sought for, you know. And this is pretty much the central cliche of something like Zen or several other spiritual traditions, probably mostly Eastern or something like that. Eastern, you know. But that's not really what I was getting at. Just that if we really think about it, there's a sense in which there's even been less said in this than we thought. Like, this is like, there's even less meaning than we even suspected there was a lack of meaning here. That absolutely everything that has been said is here has completely been not only searching for an other, but kind of actively erecting this other in the present, like actively creating this object of searching, like you know, just bringing it into reality. And that's really funny. I don't know. Yeah, it is. It's funny. But then again, so it's like, you know, but let's not get like, let's try to avoid being totally swept away by simply the qualities of our subjective experience, and let's not just be totally swept away by what would appear to be some experience of noticing and a unseen aspect of our own psyche or mind or whatever it is, because we can, you know, we can keep our feet on the ground, if you will, and still observe that none of this changes anything about the world. Or does it? I don't know. I'm confused again. But you know, it's kind of like don't dwell too long on a vista, like there's no problem with getting right back into it, getting right back into the thick of things. Like there's nothing coming out of this that is any relief from confusion. And there's nothing coming out of this that's any solution for any problem. In fact, I'm back at the point of like, what do I say next? Same as the beginning. I'm just kind of enacting the power process, if you want to put it in the cynical framing of Ted Kaczynski. I mean, just that idea of since I don't have enough externally imposed problems in my life, then I have to internally impose challenges and then overcome them in order to, temporarily feel as if I have meaning and power in life. And whoa, I heard something like a slithering, and so I didn't see where it was coming from, so I just continued moving forward. And so it's like the question, if you find yourself in a position of relative freedom, at least perceived, like I don't feel actively, I don't feel as if my options are being actively curtailed by external forces. As I perceive that they are for a vast many number of people. And then, it's like examine the possible options, and then I've chosen this. Like, what the hell? So, am I just? And maybe this applies to you in some respect. I'm sorry to put it to you like this, but are you and I just submitting ourselves to an activity that in which we know there's a very high likelihood of a crisis of meaning rearing its ugly head? Oh, there's a nice little reishi mushroom. And having some kind of intuition that anytime that we subjectively feel this crisis of meaning, that somehow the opposite state soon reveals itself. I mean, that is that's my intuition. But then the form that takes could be any number of ways. It's like it could involve a complete change in what one is doing, or it could involve almost no change in what one is doing, or no change at all, merely a persistence. Or it can involve, you know, anything in between those two poles, like a different relationship to what one is doing, or a different way of doing what one is doing, or so on and so forth. For instance, if I'm putting it in terms of meaning, then I can reflect that within the scope of this repeated activity, that I have experienced the gamut of subjectively feeling profound absence of meaning, and then its opposite, or something like a more transcendent meaning, or something like that. But those always seeming to be the two sides of the same coin, of course. And at least the concrete parameters of what I'm doing don't change one bit. In fact, it's like the maintaining of them as being the same seems to contribute to, if not the movement through those cycles, at least the ability to have a broad view over them. That is, when one's activity is staying the same, then it is easier to see the changing nature of the qualities of experience that occur while doing that same thing. And so in that respect, just doing the same thing for a long time is very advantageous, I would say. I mean, I guess I would say if there's anything that that I feel grateful that I've done in life, it really boils down to persisting at the same practices for long periods. Like that's like I never regret having persisted for a long period doing the same thing. But I mean that with regards to like an active practice. I don't mean that with regard to, oh hey, there's a couple there's a whole bunch of vultures. we're above the vultures that are flying. I don't mean persisting for a long time in the type of thing that has, the immediate gravity of gratification towards it, like playing video games or, continuing to, well, I guess continuing to do a job that feels meaningless is debatable, that's different for everybody. Although, I've also never regretted I never regretted quitting something that over the long haul continued to be unrewarding, like certain jobs. But like I say, that's a much more complicated issue. Like, your actual job could, in that sense, be really boring, but provide you the means to do something that's very meaningful. Or let's not even get into that. That's a whole different area. Like, things can suck in the immediate and be beneficial in ways that are hard to keep one's perspective on. And now that's like a possibility about this activity, about walking and talking, that I will not close off. I'll not close off the possibility that that despite the transient experiences of this kind of sucking in some ways, or being at least mediocre, or bringing up uncomfortable uncertainties into my experience, that the long persistence of this may have benefits that in those instances are difficult to maintain perspective at all. But, as I say that, it's like I can also think about how the opportunity to think these things and ask these questions, and the pressure to articulate them in a way that would be understandable, is a good thing, I think. Merely the pressure to speak in a way that's, at least in principle, comprehensible, has, I think, for me, some kind of connecting power to it. It is in a way shaping my subjective experience in a way that has like a that at least interfaces with some others, with interfaces with the experience of at least the people who A, speak English, B, have the attentional span necessary, and C, the interest in submitting themselves to this type of media. Basically, this activity interfaces you and I in a way that is weird. And to me, interesting. Even if we meander, even if we never get to the point, even if we never get to any point, or or if there isn't even the possibility of getting to a point. But I think, I would say that even to the extent that this meanders and goes on tangents, and it is convoluted, and it is almost inevitably creating its own problems and unnecessarily defining structures of meaning that no one would miss if they didn't exist. In a sense, I would say that the same holds true for the rest of life. I don't know, maybe not so much. I mean, maybe not so much. I mean, I can't avoid the difference between the impact of a decision made in this bounded context and a decision that would, directly impact the material conditions of other people or beings. I mean, so of course, like the question begs, like, why this and why not some more immediately beneficial activity where you just immediately help somebody in a practical sense. But then you have to be wary of that as well. You have to be wary of, let's say, immediate emotional reward of seemingly helping somebody in an immediate fashion, and the more broad view of how do you actually help the most. And that being very dependent on one's individual circumstance, of course. Your set of faculties and skills and position in the world, and you know, the problems that you have access to, and the tool set that you have. And so my thinking often goes along the lines of what are the sorts of things I might be able to bring into being into the world that few or no other people would be able to, and that, well, that simply wouldn't exist if it weren't myself doing them. And this isn't necessarily the same criteria that everyone need use to judge what they need to do, because of course there are very mundane types of helping that need to happen that don't necessarily rely on totally unique circumstances or skill sets. But that are important nonetheless. What was that critter? Something just jumped in there. But yeah, I don't know. I apologize for going on what appears to me like a familiar territory. For trotting down a path of something like utilitarianism, or relating to the concerns thereof that are quite possibly elucidated in much clearer terms by others. Perhaps I am projecting too many of my own doubts. Maybe I am conceiving this form of media as being maybe a type of a black hole. I mean, a good type of black hole that I want to exist, that like a black hole of meaning. I mean, it's like we go to the internet for distraction. We go to YouTube for a quick answer. Or distraction from discomfort. I don't know. And then, man, I feel lame. I feel as if my cognition is in a sub-ideal way, and that it's still kind of vainly attempting to justify myself, but it is doing, and it is lacking some amount of attentional continuity. Lacking some perspective to see what it is that could be done here that can't be done elsewhere. Like still in some orientation towards goodness that is ultimately maintaining a type of problem. Or is there a type of tiredness that recoils from the uncomfortable questions and takes recourse in some alternate framing of this experience in order to, dodge the uncomfortable. But it's no less uncomfortable. Just the feeling that this is bad. This is bad stuff. But I what I think might be called for here is an infusion of willpower. An infusion of willpower to to the extent that it's a real thing, invigorate these proceedings with some energy, the energy of will to just push through the bad feelings and snap out of it. Is that possible? And so the way that this is manifesting, I think, is I'm intentionally walking a little faster. I'm just walking faster, and I'm talking faster, and I'm aware of talking with a little bit more energy and volume. And to me, this just what's present is a little bit more of just an emotional tone of, you could call it confidence, but it's not really confidence. It's just proceeding with more energy, even in the face of the unknowing of what the hell I am doing and what any of this means. But I'm just gonna not stop talking for long enough to allow my doubts to develop in an unarticulated way, in an unexpressed way, all my doubts will here on out be verbally expressed. I guess just in maybe having some vague notion that by forging forward this way, I mean, it all sounds too heroic and glamorous, more than it is. But just that maybe some of these feelings can be burnt up in sort of in some kind of furnace of at least experienced willful effort expended towards the goal of just a different orientation, like like a cessation of excessively wondering and questioning about what is the problem, what is the big meaning of everything, what is to be done about that, what is to be done in life, and I'm just proceeding in the spirit of just going ahead and doing something, proceeding in action without being really sure that it is, the ultimately correct action, but in the feeling that some kind of movement is called for. You know what I mean? And it's not like it's not like that is really happening. It's not like this is necessarily the reality of doing something as opposed to thinking about doing something, because of course this is still just thinking, just verbalizing, same as it was before, just with a different emotional tone applied to it, and indulging in the experience of willpower to the extent that we perceive it. Because we can go ahead and concede whatever our philosophical position about the existence of willpower. There is an extent in which it just seems experientially relevant anyways, and so why not go ahead and delve into it and be like, yeah, I can will myself to move along with more energy, even if what would be the natural telos would be to continue to kind of like wallow in a certain philosophical morass or torpid uncertainty or whatever. But now it's just like moving in a more energetic uncertainty, and I guess that's fun or something, or yeah, I don't know. I think there's that feeling of autumn on the air, and that really infuses everything with, like, to me, a type of melancholy. This whatever it is, like just subtle environmental cues, maybe certain leaves just beginning to change color, or what is it, a certain briskness in the air or something about the color of the sky or something like that. I don't know what it is, or smells, or the feeling of the air starts to bring these hints on of the autumn, and all the sensual vibrancy dying away out of the environment, and being giving way to the bleakness of winter, which is then just kind of like removing any kind of shielding between ourselves and what would seem to be the existential bleakness of our position, of our world situation, and all of that. But because it's like you got to engage in something that offers some kind of alternative to bleakness. Boy howdy. And then but then when nature temporarily becomes bleak itself, it gets a little more challenging. But it's not there yet, it's not winter yet. It's still, this is still nothing. It's just nothing with a different superficial quality to it. Just merely the physiological and emotional and affective lipstick on a pig, but not really lipstick on a pig. There's not really any pig, I don't think. But I mean, maybe it is a pig in that there still is this looming question of like, is this all a mistake? Is this all merely narcissist? Will there be some kind of development of something meaningful or in some way redemptive of this experience for you and for me? Does it need redemption? Or would it even be okay if the total irredeemable pointlessness of all of this, even on your end, persists for the entire duration of this video, and even then I would expect there would be some kind of response on your part, wherein if that were the case, there would be some questioning on your part about how your time is spent, and I wouldn't, and maybe that could result in a good change for you. But that is kind of a lazy recourse on my part to take the position of making merely worthless media with the rationale that the obvious worthlessness of it, the obviousness of its worthlessness will spur you, the listener, towards some more active decision making about your relationship to media and to the world in general, and so on and so forth. It's like this kind of lazy avant-garde reasoning, whereas like I think that every attempt should be made. That was a nice slither. That was a real slither. It's like I could hear and see the slithering taking place, but not perceive the actual snake. I could hear and I could see the residual movement in the leaves, but not perceive the actual source. That seems like a reasonable metaphor for this video also. Like feeling all this, experiencing all this stirring and irritation. There's just like this irritation of my being that is persisting here, and yet I can't really hone in on the source of it. It's like this escaping ghost that I'm chasing after. This, I am chasing after something, like the I'm chasing after I guess like some substantial feeling of resolution of things being in some sense okay, and to have the emotion of that. And maybe it's like I have to admit of the possibility of not finding it now, at least. But I do have no doubt that that does exist at some point in time. I mean, and is that enough though, Maybe it is. But, I mean, there's nothing that's enough, really. It's like we're experiencing emotional disequilibrium of some sort or another. I mean, or at least I am. Maybe you aren't. I mean, I'm willing to bet that you probably are experiencing some form of disequilibrium. After all, I don't think you would even exist without if you had no form of disequilibrium. What can I say other than some dissatisfaction remains, something manifesting variously as melancholy, sadness, worry, doubt. It could be or manifesting even also as a disappointment, having somewhat expected to have positive feelings by now. It's we're past the halfway mark of walking and talking, and this whatever it is, uneasiness persists. And then intellectually I'm like I'm intellectually accepting of this, at least right now. I'm intellectually accepting of this this experience differing from, in some respects, what I wanted, and then I'm recognizing that in a sense what I wanted was to feel good, to feel the opposite of this uncertainty. I wanted to feel a deep sense of well-being and comforting view of reality. And what I've thus far encountered differs from that. And then in some sense manifests as the disappointment of not having encountered that yet. The disappointment of having to continue navigating this intellectual and emotional irresolution, dissatisfaction, whatever word you want to put on it. But then when I am, what follows from that intellectual acceptance of what this is, which before I was not intellectually accepting of it. I was like trying to move forward, like trying to find the resolution, trying to find the mistake in my approach, or the mistake in my thinking, the mistake in my orientation, trying to find the position of whatever it be, either be like some kind of non-striving, or some kind of striving with a deeper sense of belonging, or whatever. I was searching for that, mentally and emotionally. And now at least in theory, I can accept the feeling of this being unsatisfying. In theory, I can accept that it's okay if my emotional experience and even my own mental experience remains with a glaring inadequacy. Or even that it smacks of a type of crisis of meaning. I mean, and I suppose that what that theoretical acceptance of this is that I'm still adhering to a process. I'm still fulfilling the parameters that I've set out for myself of continuing to walk and talk and record for the 4 hours, and that those are the parameters that matter, and the quality of the experience therein is not the important part, particularly the quality of the emotional experience. I mean, and weirdly enough, that strikes me as maybe what a certain part of myself was trying to remind myself of. Like that the part of myself that has that initially committed to doing this and has remained committed to doing this enough to keep doing this. Which is a part of myself that always has the possibility of receding from the fore, or receding out of experience, or receding into memory, or something like that. It can be small when you're far away from it, that that part of yourself that commits to a certain practice. It's as if my present self is receiving a message from that other aspect of myself that's harder to see sometimes. And that message has something to do with like the acceptance of certain characteristics of experience, the acceptance of certain phenomena, the acceptance of certain, like, phenomenal qualities of experience, or content of experience, because it is in fact content of experience, or at least could be thought of that way. Or content of consciousness. Something to do with the message has something to do with like that enduring some of the unpleasant contents of consciousness. I don't know, it's getting harder to say, because I was tempted to say that it pays off, or that it has reward, but it's more like zooming out to observing consciousness itself, like zooming out to whatever container it is in which all this dissatisfaction occurs within. And as such, that being something that is not so describable in terms of dualistic language, of like, it's like, and from a dualistic way of speaking, it's like you persist through the discomfort, and then it could be said that you are rewarded from some higher vantage point, or something like that, in which that discomfort is like, seems small or insignificant or something like that. But then from that vantage point, good or bad, or enduring discomfort versus reward is not really so meaningful, and maybe kind of distracts from the point. it's interesting that it's interesting. I want to say that what is becoming salient about experience, or just to say, I'll just say my reality, my lived reality at this moment, my present. What is becoming salient about my lived reality is something that seems to be becoming increasingly slippery and harder to express with language, even though I'm recognizing that at the same time, wherever this language is originating from, it seems like there's at least an attempted connection there, or that the linguistic meaning issuing forth, there's at least some attempt towards correlating that with some element of experience that seems in a way contradictory to language at all, or always beyond it. But you know, that sounds like a little dramatic. I mean, that is a little dramatic. Maybe in some sense, what has gone on is a certain evacuation of meaning that has reached a certain point that in which it feels really good, I guess. But then good is the wrong word for it. Like, let's just say that from this vantage point, it's like in fact, all the problematicness now does mean something. That not that it means something. It's like the continuing 2 hours of a more or less persistently uncomfortable absence of meaning or certainty or security or knowing what to do, or what really is going on, or what is the relation between self and world, or what is the proper relation between self and world. That the continued experienced problematicness of all of that did in fact have a very crucial function. of actually tearing down something that is not missed, is not being missed. But that paradoxically was never there to begin with, was never there to be torn down. That from a certain way of speaking, there was a tearing down of a dualizing set of entities, viewed at from the other end. Temporality was reversed. It's just like a if temporality was reversed, then it could be described as a casting up of an illusion, or type of phenomenal phantom, phenomenal phantom self with corresponding phantom world. but then again, really, that never happened. Or never happened in reverse. Like it's still kind of not right to be referring to time at all. But that there's more like a incoherence that is just gloriously luminous. An ecstatic incoherence, and that's all the wrong thing to say. Everything's the wrong thing to say. Of course. Well, we could say, like, the change being an aspect of the stillness, and vice versa. I mean, just like metaphorically, the structure of this video, metaphorically. Including all of, including however much sense or lack thereof, or opposite thereof, like as if there is like a dark matter equivalent of sense, or like a type of anti-sense. That's just like the you know, like a particle and an anti-particle that create each other and destroy each other. Like, it's not that, yeah, something like, it's not that there is now something like meaning being experienced, or meaning being revealed. There's just a felt abandonment of the attempt to find it. There's just like a cessation of trying to find the way, pretty much. And not that that is the answer either. Or, yeah, you know, that in itself is not any kind of answer. But let me just ask you this. Let me just ask you this. Are we suffering right now? Am I suffering? And are you suffering? I'm just asking you that. And then also the question of, do we know like what's going on at all? Like, do we really understand anything at all right now? I was just looking at that praying mantis and looking at how incredibly closely it resembles a blade of grass or a stalk of grass even down to the segments in its body, resembling the segmentation in a grass plant. As well as the fennel plants that I always am finding praying mantises hanging out on to eat the aphids. It's like also almost a perfect mimic of the fennel. And I was thinking about, just thinking in evolutionary terms, about camouflage and what would be the driving and pulling points, to confer advantage of looking a certain way. Like, what would we attribute the praying mantis looking a certain way? And it's both to evade the detection of its prey, but also its own predators, the ones that it co-evolves with. And that's completely dependent on the perception, the visual perception of both the bugs that would maybe try to evade it, and the birds, I'm assuming, or other predators that would be looking for a praying mantis to eat. And just in kind of a pretty basic and obvious way, how over time it's like what we would refer to as material reality has conformed in accordance to perception. Like, it's obvious that birds have a different type of vision than humans do. Their visual perception would be attuned slightly differently, or maybe very differently, towards certain details than ours would. And they say that, like, birds of prey have this incredible visual acuity for things on the ground that they would want to eat. And so, like, the greatest evolutionary advantage would be conferred onto those adaptations that most closely correspond with those aspects of the predators and their prey's visual perception. And that's just a way of saying that, like, that's a sense in which objective reality is, in a manner of speaking, in a manner of thinking about it, being determined by something that is purely subjective. That is the subjective experience of the predators and the prey, whatever that may be, is effectively determining objective reality in the form of the shape that in the form of the evolutionary advantages that would be selected for in the praying mantis. And it seems to me kind of easy to extend that line of thinking to the ways in which, for instance, human perception would have this major role in shaping the physical environment. These are just like, these seem like now very completely obvious things to talk about and to say, like really obvious. But also, you know, that something like perception itself is also being determined by the objective reality. That is like the types of subjective experience that the form of subjective experiences that an animal would have would be selected for the types of subjective experiences that confer evolutionary advantage due to the conditions of the external world that it exists in. And when we're looking at, you know, for instance, like the bird, of course the bird of prey's visual acuity, you know, very logically having evolved due to the pressure to find food. But if we look at evolution, and it seems to have this teleology to it, that is like this increasing levels of complexity and specialization, and funnily enough, we seem to perceive ourselves, humans, as being the most complex life forms that have ever existed on the earth, and that we know of in the entire universe. How lucky, how fortunate that it was us. It was us. So lucky that you know, that you and I just happen to be born at the apogee of evolutionary complexity, an apogee that appears so fragile and vulnerable, considering the perilous condition of the world that supports us, etc., etc. And we view this ladder of evolution as, I mean, one way of viewing it is as a increasingly sophisticated separation of subjectivity and objectivity. That is, as we move back in time and down the evolutionary rungs of the ladder, so to speak, and we project our conception of what consciousness is, you know, downwards towards the simpler and simpler organisms with fewer and fewer perceptual apparatuses and less complex perceptual apparatuses. For me, at least, then I project into some primordial state of non-separation, of non-dualism, a decreasing dualism as biology simplifies down to the point of resembling and becoming mere inanimate matter. You know, when you get to the simple virus that is almost questionable whether it is a being, whether it is animate, or it is simply a chemical reaction. You know, is it at the point where you can either identify it as a being or as merely a chemical process, of a physical process behaving in accordance with the laws of physics, you know. What is that? And so I am suggesting all of this not as an actual reality, but as one manner of thinking that I observe to perhaps be maybe subconsciously undergirding a lot of our sense of identity as humans. The idea, the notion based on that kind of model, or that model being kind of implicit from our sense that we are this complex animal and this complex society, and perhaps even a civilization that has certain emergent forms of complexity that are unique in the universe and are not exhibited by other animals, and so on and so forth, culture and technology and so on. And the perceived specialness of that, the perceived rarity of it, you know, and the perceived sacredness of that, of there being that erecting a very strong moral hierarchy, let's say, between killing a person and killing a virus. Now, don't get me wrong, I am by no means going to get into some kind of moralistic stance of a virus is as valuable as a human or something like that, but it's just flows intuitively and naturally, and I would you know, I behave this way also effectively in life, just that I will not hesitate to smack a mosquito, but if I were knowingly responsible for a person's death, it would haunt me for the rest of my life. And then similarly, like we view the larger emergent constructions of humans similarly, like to destroy a culture or to destroy a city would be a similar like level of atrocity, you know. And I'm not saying that this is wrong, but I'm just like kind of illustrating this paradigm such as it is. But what was it that I was actually trying to get at? I think that it is that I think it's something along the lines of the perceptual and conceptual. I mean, and we can just like merge those into something like experienced or something, complexities that we are able to observe in the human animal and in the human society and culture and civilization. That it is no accident that we would be made to perceive that amount of complexity and that amount of specialness and rarity in the patterns of reality that most resemble ourselves, that in the objective phenomena in the world that mirror the phenomena of our own subjectivity. It's a mirroring. And that I'm saying that the particular parameters of our experience, that is the particular perceptual parameters, the syntax and the grammar of our perception, the way that we see and feel and hear and touch and experience touch. That is a type of syntax that creates the content of our subjectivity and what we perceive as objective. That the syntax of our perception is creating the content of our perception and vice versa. That you could also look at it as the content that we of our experiences is the syntax of the characteristics of our perception itself. And when I say perception here, I'm also meaning conception as like that as being like perceived thought forms, or in some way more abstract perceptions. And I will also say that the conceptual and the perceptual are interdependent. That is, one view would be like that there is a raw, primordial, sensed experience that is then made sense of. It is post facto made sense of by concepts, but I would venture to say that in fact the conceptual actually plays a very important role in determining what is in fact perceived at all. That they both affect each other. That they're not there's not one kind of overlaid atop the other. I mean, just as a kind of example, it's like the typical way that I would describe, say, my touch experience is that the self, sense the perceptions that come in from the boundaries of my body, from my skin, or other interoceptive sensory inputs, like, you know, the balance in my body, or I sense the grass brushing against my legs, and I sense the feeling of weight on the bottom of my feet. And so that would seem like, you know, that's there's out there a fundamentally real world, and then a fundamentally real self that is gathering sensory input from the sensory interfaces between that self and the world. But then I'm going to say that in itself is a construction that is conceptual. And then another way is like the sensations, the touch sensations themselves. It is possible to direct attention so fully to them that they become perceived not as the markers of the delimitations of your body, sensing the real external world, but they become observed as nodes of connection and transference of energy that do not denote a delimitation between self and other, but that become the transience between them, so much so that they become, in fact, so meaningless that they lose all reality. That, like, say, the confines of the boundaries of my body in certain circumstances lose their reality. Such that it no longer makes sense to even refer to my skin as being this touch sense receptor, or even as an entity at all that is a site of transference, but it's like a non-entity, in that it is so continuous with the world, that the self is so continuous in the world that there's no entity in or out, that there is no in or out. And then it's like what perception actually becomes so much less of a given. like what actually is, you know, becomes less of a given. So kind of what I'm trying to say is that the perceived ladder of evolution, this the perceived hierarchy of biological complexity is in fact is in itself kind of like a perceptual, conceptual result of the particularities of the particular ways in which we perceive and conceive. And then that's why it's kind of no surprise that it's all seems centered around us, you know, that like it's like it would be an enormously like improbably lucky occurrence that some purely objective perceiving entity, some purely objective subjectivity would just happen to be born into the form that is the apogee of complexity of experience, of complexity of understanding the world. That's too lucky. It is in fact just like this phenomenal type of phantom thing that is completely, you know, it makes sense why it's that way, you know. It makes perfect sense why it appears that way. It's a manifestation of like it's like this locality, this felt centrality of subjectivity, you know, that the feeling of there being a here and now. Where in fact like the actual centrality is everywhere, that the subjectivity is in fact centered everywhere at once. And the center really is everywhere at once. Which means it would also be somewhat equivalent to say that there actually isn't a center. Which is weird to say because of how strong that feels, how strongly like a fundamental quality of experience, it seems like, that your and my subjectivity are centered here and not somewhere else. That they take the shape of being inside this body, this entity within the world, and not somewhere else in the world, not within that rock over there, not within the praying mantis. But then it's like the centrality of here, the locality of there being a here is completely dependent on this perception of there being a there, of there being another there where it could be, of like, how come I wasn't born the praying mantis, or the virus, or the rock? How come I wasn't reincarnated as one of those instead of how I am here? Or, you know, but then it's like you have to realize that even the existence of the praying mantis or the bunny or the rock, its very existence is actively something that's being called forth by the same experiential phenomena that is actively creating yourself, the centrality of your subjectivity, as to what extent it may, to the extent that it is real, to the extent that your own self and subjectivity is real, is the extent to which the other is real. The rest of the world is real as such, and is also the extent to which this apparent activity of perceiving and experiencing is real, which you might get the hint that I'm implying that the extent to which all those things is real is not a given, and that in fact to call into question their reality is like implying that in some sense they're not that real, or that it is that there is at least some provisionality or relativity to their realness. in the sense that I say that the center of consciousness is everywhere at once, and that the kind of perceived hierarchies of consciousness are illusory. Connected with that, I'm also saying that things like temporality are also have that illusory status, as well as spatial extent, like spatial separation. And I would say that that spatiotemporality is kind of a model that is useful for describing certain correspondences of the contents of consciousness, a certain way of describing the phenomena, but it is like wow, this is a cool rock. It is like a conceptual structure that is interdependent with the notions of like the discrete self and the objective reality, objective world outside. I wish I could be more articulate in describing like what they are, you know. It's like in some sense they're also like another syntax describing this relation between things, or they're a syntax that describe a relation between phenomena, but all those phenomena in themselves also relying on that very syntax in order to have meaning and even exist. Now, of course, you will find here in this experience that we are also engaging in all of this syntax and language that also is interdependent with dualistic experience. That is, any experience at all is dualistic. And that the notion of experience at all implies an experienced and an experiencer. And like if we're perceiving communication happening here, then it's between two parties. But then, and so it's like, seems like we can observe all of this, maybe if it's not separation felt so much, maybe if we have a felt experience less of separation at this point in the experience. I mean, at least on my end. I don't know about you, but a feeling of a type of like stretching out or stratifying the unity of reality into opposing entities like me and you, here and there, and past and future, etc. Or you know, it continues like good and bad, and all of these dualisms. It seems as if they're contained. Or as if they're merely aspects of unity or something. That they are in fact the expressions of unity, and like that's maybe a better descriptor than as illusory per se. Like, you know, illusory implying a relative untruth to them. Or that they are not as real as something else. But then again, it's like in a sense they are just as real when you think of them as the expressions of a unity that could never be otherwise perceived or otherwise experienced or otherwise have any existence whatsoever. Or another way of saying this is that nothing even exists. Nothing exists. There's not even any illusion of anything existing. And that which appears to sit right before us, notwithstanding, you know, that included. All this included, everything that I'm saying included. It doesn't even exist. There's not anyone saying this, and there's no one hearing it. There's not anything being said. Nor was there ever. It's all, and then at the same time, it's all there. It's all here. It's all there. 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 It's all there It's all here and it's all there. It's all here and there. And everything perceived, you know, however illusory, it's like, is as real as anything else. In the sense that any perfect unity, by the very definition of what it is, cannot be said to exist. It cannot be said to have reality in any sense that is any more real than anything else. I mean, just understand, like, perfect unity means no perceiver and no perceived. Therefore no perception, no experience, no experiencer, no experienced, no reality. The whole, the most fundamental has no reality. And like that's the aspect that would be the most fundamental. Meaning there's nothing at the fundamental level. And so everything that we would think of as being the many, the 1001 forms that would seem to have an only relative reality, in a sense are no farther away from reality than anything else. And in that sense, it is all on the same level. There is no difference in that sense. Just in the sense of, if the fundamental basis of reality is definitionally non-existent, then it's a little bit like saying that all subjugate levels of reality are infinitely far away from it. That it is, since it is really unattainable to the point of not really existing, everything is infinitely far from attaining the status of reality. And in that sense, every subjugate form of relative truth and reality is nowhere like higher on the totem pole. I mean, don't misconstrue this idea to mean that let's say there's no difference between say consensus reality and a lie. It's like in the comparison between those two, there's that sense in which the lie has a inferior claim on reality compared to the most up-to-date consensus version of reality. But then again, that is all within a certain paradigm that is all within a certain structure of meaning that is itself an extrapolation of nothing, or of emptiness, or of absence. There's probably a clearer way to put that. There's probably a more elucidating way to illustrate the difference between those varying statuses of ontology. I mean, I will say that all of this really takes all the sting out of the notion of individual death, you know, of not the it doesn't take the sting out of, well, it takes the sting out of the idea of my own death, you know, like that it is essentially so unproblematic to the point of not even being real, not even existing. There is no death to the subjective. That there is no subjective actuality of death. That death is only something that we perceive as happening to something other than ourselves. But for the self in question, there never is any death. And you know, what that's like that is saying something that stands as paradoxical in conventional thinking. But if you think about it enough, it's not. It doesn't mean it's any less painful when say you experience the death of someone in your life, someone a perceived other to you. It doesn't necessarily have any implications about that experience of experiencing an other dying. But in some sense, it's, you know, could be a form of philosophical comfort. It's maybe it can take the role that the idea of an afterlife would take, you know, the idea of heaven, the idea that the person went to a better place. Like that understanding of death as that's another kind of narrative that essentially says that death is not real, that it is simply a transience of form, you know, of leaving one certain body and going to a different place, whether that be of reincarnation or going to the afterlife, so on and so forth. In a certain way, I think that both of those worldviews, that is, the idea of going to an eternal afterlife, even one depending on your behavior in this mortal life. Say you were bad in this life, you treated others poorly in this life, and you go to hell for eternity, or purgatory or something, or you were good in this life, so you go to heaven. Also, the notion of reincarnation, say that throughout the expanse of infinite time, your soul will inhabit all the other forms that come into existence, and therefore, just by implication of that, the idea that you should treat every other being the way you would want to be treating, because you are in a certain way treating yourself that way. So has the same function as this. Both of those have the same function as each other, and as this notion that I'm saying that there is no end to subjectivity, that there is only this like multiplicity of perceived form of subjectivity, that in fact the perceived multiplicity of subjectivities that would be the like multiple beings, that there are multiple beings with their own subjectivities that could be linked via reincarnation, that in fact those are all simply aspects of the same unity that is centered everywhere all at once, that is centered everywhere all at once, and that there is in fact no separation at all, neither spatial nor temporal, but that the perceived spatial and temporal separation is essentially illusory. And that like behaving immorally is a type of, I mean, like behaving immorally has this connection to behaving as if your particular individuality has some kind of higher ontological status than that of the other. Behaving immorally would flow forth, and perhaps also have a reinforcing effect upon the worldview in which one's self is not only real and not only central to the universe, but also, like I was talking about before, is in fact perhaps the apogee of evolutionary development, is maybe the apogee of at the apogee of all these systems of value, be it morality or truth or beauty, etc., etc., and therefore reifying reifying the reality of this hierarchy of beings, this hierarchy of consciousness and hierarchy of subjectivities. That's like the worldview that is concurrent, I would say, with immoral behavior, and it makes sense that that's the type of thing that like say for instance in a Christian or other afterlife type of religion that has a set of moral, ethical rules. That's the, in a sense, it's like the type of behavior that would flow forth and confirm that type of worldview is just kind of discouraged by threat of hell, you know, and by the reward of heaven, though not, and so it's like, it's kind of like indirectly, very indirectly, depending on how you interpret it, like pointing at that type of unity. And then if you think about, say, Buddhist or some other types of Eastern religions, it's that there is that the idea of reincarnation, in some sense, takes a further step towards suggesting the connectedness of all subjectivities. That's suggesting a certain worldview, that the correct understanding of that worldview or the belief in that worldview would then inherently guide one towards the towards moral behavior. That is, behavior that does not assume an inherent hierarchy between subjectivities or beings, and that does not assume a centrality of importance to the perceiving self, you know, that would tend towards perceiving the other also as an aspect of self. And so I suppose that what I'm suggesting here is something like that worldview of reincarnation, the idea that I guess, like, the way I'm interpreting it is that there is only one soul that has this occurrence all over time and space, that travels throughout time and space, that's a type of model. It's a type of representation of reality that works in our conventional way of seeing reality, as in, like, you know, that is a representation of reality that works within the model of there being space and time, you know. It's like, if we are persisting in a spatio-temporal modeling of reality, then this which I'm also saying is in fact a type of representation, and not the real enchilada, so to speak. That spatio-temporality is a type of representation, then the notion of reincarnation is the corresponding representation of what the self is and how it relates to the other through space and time. So what I'm suggesting is, in some way, just a collapsing of both spatiotemporality all into, you know, an atemporality and I don't know, aspatiality, like no space, no time, and no self and no other. And in that sense, the notion of reincarnation is no longer makes sense and is no longer needed and is no longer even has any meaning. Like just a way of kind of like condensing religion I guess in my view, I don't know, but not just religion really, but not just religion, but like to what is it like condense and reduce the phenomena of being until it's like I don't know where I'm going with this. Like something like to either let go of these like structural components of our worldview, to the extent that they're not really needed, or at least to be able to relate to them in a more permeable kind of way, or to be able to understand them as not being fundamental, not being fundamental reality, but actually being representations of reality, or a type of extrapolation of reality, or like being a particular shaping of reality. And in that sense, it's like not like you have to really reject them or reject any person that is entertaining those worldviews. It's like you can understand them. As not being in conflict with your own reality, but in fact being merely an aspect of the same reality that you experience. Come on. It really is a good feeling. It's like, it's really like the best feeling that I can really recall or imagine. And let's not necessarily say that like let's not necessarily say that I'm getting a good feeling from doing a good deed, because like obviously all I'm doing is a lot of talking, and we definitely need not construe that as deed, but when you have a type of understanding of the world that in which just like trying to benefit others like is just feels like the natural thing to do. Like in a sense, it doesn't even feel like the good thing to do. It's like you don't even feel like you're doing like you wouldn't even perceive of it as doing good. You don't even think of it as doing good. It's just like not having this identification of self that's like in contrast with the other, and that the self has to. I'm just gonna go ahead here and dump like a bunch of super flowery Buddhist sounding shit that's gonna be really this is all gonna sound disgustingly cliche, everything that I'm gonna dump on you right now, or what's the word, gush. I'm just gonna be gushing sentimental for a little bit here, forgive me, but that it just feels deeply it feels deeply good to get just like get rid of this feeling like I need to help myself in competition with others, you know, that I need to like maintain a certain status of self that gets its meaning in comparison with others, and that is if not in competition with others, then that is at least independent of others. No, it's like you get rid of that, and then it's like it's like benefiting the other is benefiting yourself, and blah 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 blah. I mean, I know it sounds completely cheesy, but that's genuinely what I feel right now. I know I won't feel it all the time. I know I won't always feel that. I know in many times I will probably feel envious, jealous, covetous, angry, spiteful, all the bad Christian things or whatever. Be careful if somebody has like edited this out of context. It's gonna sound really stupid. It's gonna sound really Christian, which would be a big misconstrual. I know I'm gonna feel the opposite of this at times. I'm gonna hate everyone. I'm gonna hate the world. Yeah, fuck you, fuck all of you. But right now, I'm just gonna go ahead and say, it feels phenomenally wonderful to feel such a sense of connection that the whole idea of doing good is totally meaningless, that it is not even necessary, that there's not any kind of like feeling of imperative of I need to do good. other than it's like that the notion of what would have been doing good is now merged into the notion of just like what is a natural expression of being, you know, what is just a natural way of being. And of course I'm saying all this shit now, and I really have no idea of like if it's going to manifest in some in any kind of significant behavioral change from what I was doing before, you know. And also everything that I'm saying right now can also be thought of more critically, for instance, by the framing that I put forth in the very beginning of this video, where I predicted that something that was likely to happen is that, you know, my emotional state would be affected by something like a flow state that would be achieved by virtue merely of just like walking in nature and sticking to the parameters of this activity, sticking to the bounded parameters of this activity, and perhaps moving through some challenging aspect of this activity, you know, get into a state that is, as I was describing earlier, is maybe in some sense ignorantly or naively divorced from the reality of the world, and might in fact be just a fleeting, flowery feeling, after which I will perhaps return to all my self-centered ways, but nonetheless, there isn't a sense in which, well, in some way, like this reality that I have here and now is all that I really have right now, and you know, it's like my experience being this way right now, and being this level of powerfully this way right now, has to count for something, you know. It has to in some way or another affect or infiltrate a subsequent experience, if only by infiltrating that experience as a memory, you know, as a memory of feeling a certain way that I correlated with being a higher truth or something, or a deeper understanding of reality, in which the type of behavior that would be the most natural would be treating the other as myself, you know. So I have a feeling that like that even this existing in however diminished form as like a memory of an experience can potentially have a type of power to it. You know, and then even if like those more critical type of framings of this also have truth to them, like sure, like all those critical framings, like maybe I'm just now experiencing the upside of doing Kaczynski's fucking power process, or merely basically like the good feeling when I know this fucking talking is almost done and I can go eat some damn food. The predictable uptick in my emotions and my corresponding worldview and so on and so forth. Anyhow, it's just like from this perspective, like all of the fucking feeling of everything, of all the bullshit of at least the first 2 hours of this video, you know, from the present, like from the bias of the present, from the present bias, feels totally worth it. Does that mean anything to say that? I don't know, you know? I don't really know. I would say that the discomfort of that was certainly nothing like even approaching unbearableness, but like, I don't know if anything can be made from this. It's not necessarily to comfort you and your trials and tribulations in your life, because those are all very, you know, in a sense, very much yours. The specific form of them is uniquely yours. The fundamental nature of them is I think pretty universally human. So it's like, I don't know, maybe you can take some comfort in that. In some sense, I can very much tell you that they will get better. From my experience, things will get better. But then at the same sense, it's like the fundamental problematicness of life and existing as whatsoever never goes away. Maybe you can take comfort in the reality of the problemness never going away. Or maybe you can decide never to. Maybe you can also take something out of not taking any comfort. But maybe you can also not take any comfort and just keep going, you know, without comfort, without the need for comfort or something. Anyway, this is all just a different way of saying things that don't need to be said at all, and also is essentially saying the same kind of nothing that I've been saying the whole time here, or before I was saying anything at all. But I think our time is just about up here, or close enough. Anyhow, till next time, I thank you deeply for lending meaning to my fucking existence by your very willingness to participate in this, however passively or actively, or we can drop those distinctions. Anyhow, basically, thanks for listening. Give me lots of money on Patreon, and patreon.com/Benjamin Bennett. Okay, thanks a lot. Bye.